going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
Adversaries remain on notice.
It involved more than 150 aircraft launching across the Western Hemisphere.
The President of the United States is not a game player, but don't play games.
And Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, who was captured by U.S. forces in Caracas, arrived at a New York jail in the U.S. on Saturday. The left-wing leader was captured after months of threats and pressure tactics by President Donald Trump in a swift but audacious military operation. The official White House rapid response account showed Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro escorted by DEA agents inside the headquarters of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration in Lower Manhattan in New York. Visuals also showed Maduro and his wife being escorted onto a helicopter in New York after he landed. Earlier, Maduro was seen surrounded by FBI agents as he descended the boarding stairs of a U.S. government plane at a New York State National Guard facility and was slowly escorted along the tarmac. Now, a helicopter that may have been carrying Venezuelan president was later seen over Manhattan. And according to reports, Maduro will be transferred to the Metropolitan Detention Center in the Sunset Park neighborhood of Brooklyn. Maduro and his wife, seized overnight from their home on a military base, were first taken aboard a U.S. warship on their way to face prosecution for a Justice Department indictment accusing them of participating in a narco-terrorism conspiracy. Now, following the military action, Trump said that the United States will run Venezuela with a group. Trump said he was designating people from his cabinet to be in charge in Venezuela, but gave no details of how this would work.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious because that's what we're all about.
Trump also indicated that the U.S. troops could be deployed in Venezuela in the near future and said that Washington is not afraid of boots on the ground.
Well, you know, they always say boots on the ground. Oh, so we're not afraid of boots on the ground if we have to have. We had boots on the ground last night at a very high level, actually. We're not afraid of it. We don't mind saying it. But we're going to make sure that that country is run properly. We're not doing this in vain. This is a very dangerous attack. This is an attack that could have gone very, very badly.
The U.S. president also described the current state of the Latin American country and said that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had been in touch with Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, who had been sworn in as Maduro's successor. Trump touted that Rodriguez was essentially willing to work with Washington.
You have a vice president who's been appointed by Maduro, and right now she's the vice president, and she's, I guess, the president. She was sworn in as president just a little while ago. She had a long conversation with Marco, and she said, we'll do whatever you need. I think she was quite gracious, but she really doesn't have a choice.
Now, contrary to Trump's statement, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez had demanded the immediate release of President Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores Rodriguez. Now, Rodriguez came live on state television alongside senior government and military officials. She said that the country's political and military leadership was unified and fully mobilized.
We demand the immediate release of President Nicolás Maduro and his wife Celia Flores, the only president of Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro. Here is the most important high command of the Venezuelan state, the military high command, the high command of the state, the high command of the Council of the Vice President. All factors are combined. Political factors of national power in Venezuela.
In the meantime, Venezuela's top court has instructed Vice President Delcy Rodriguez to assume the position of country's interim leader. The judges stopped short of declaring Maduro permanently absent from office, a ruling that requires holding elections within 30 days. The High Court ruled that Rodriguez should assume and exercise in an enacting capacity all the attributes, duties, and powers inherent to the office of president to guarantee administrative continuity and the comprehensive defense of the nation. Well, for more on this, we're now being joined live by Dr. Avner Cohen. He is a professor of non-proliferation and terrorism studies, Middlebury Institute Proliferation and Terrorism Studies there. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Always a pleasure talking to you. Now, what we know is that Maduro is gone, but does not mean the government is still there. We have an interim leader Delcy Rodriguez, who has been told to take the role as interim leader. What happens with that? We know that Trump is talking about that they will run Venezuela, but with a team. What does it look like for Venezuela right now?
Well, it's a lot of uncertainty. As we heard, the vice president, Trump presented her as if she's going to follow American orders. She said very clearly she would not, and she asked for the release of the president who were taken to the United States under custody. Send some troops to Venezuela. But Venezuela is a large country, and I cannot see a situation that the United States is going to run the country without its own cooperation. How to do it, what kind of incentive, it will have to work out. There is issue of legitimacy within Venezuela. There is in the southern hemisphere of the Americas. And there is the world, and there are very major legal issues about the legality of this plan. Essentially, it's a return to the Monroe Doctrine, the full force, and the United States Trump is trying to act as the sheriff. Whether it would be allowed, whether it would be operational, it's open questions. It's not obvious at all.
And when you look at, how much leverage does Venezuela have at this moment? Because, Vice President has ordered mobilization of force, but in actuality, how much leverage does Venezuela even have, considering the fact that, Trump is not shy away from having boots on the ground?
Yes, as I said, I think it's likely that would be some American military presence in Venezuela. But to run the entire country without a full cooperation of the current Venezuelan bureaucracy, it's impossible. So the question is to what extent he would be able to make a deal that this would be allowed. I mean, he talks about bringing essentially opening kind of short.
Well, there seems to be some audio issue there, but of course, this is a question that has been revolving around everyone's mind. What happens next? What does the Venezuelan government look like? Will Trump, when it comes to having a team that Trump said, what does it look like there? And this all comes after U.S. had captured Nicolás Maduro and his wife Celia Flores from Venezuela and has now been flown to U.S., which would lead to their prosecution in American courts. Of course, that's a very important question that rolls around what happens in Venezuela next. And of course, U.S. military operation and the capture of Venezuela's leader is what we know so far. And now he's been taken to the U.S. He will be prosecuted. And we have Dr. Cohen right back with us. Thank you so much for joining back. There was some audio issue there, but yes, we were talking about how, how will this all look like? And furthermore, it's not just Venezuela, but Trump has not been shy away, and he had said last time that, this is what he said. He had sent a warning to the governments of Mexico, Cuba, and Colombia, and said that their countries could be next. What does it mean for not just Venezuela, but the whole of the entire region?
Well, he really wants to enforce the Monroe Doctrine of the 19th century in the full sense. Colonialism of the 19th century in a new phase. It will be very, very difficult to do it. I don't think there will be any acceptance for that. And it's a big talk, but we will see how it's going to be implemented. I think everybody is, right now there is virtually no much U.S. force on Venezuela. He hoped to have a cooperation to do it. Whether he will be able to do it, very, very open question.
And of course, additionally, we also know that, you know, and when you talk about Maduro, what happens to Maduro, because of course there's going to be a trial, but it's not just, you know, we also know that it's not just U.S. who has been, you know, having these bounty on Maduro, but also the international court that has been investigating the Venezuelan government for alleged human rights violations, including torture, sexual violence, and arbitrary detention. So when you look at that, there's also the involvement of International Criminal Court there. So how do you assess that?
Well, there is no question that Maduro is a bad guy. He's a bad guy in the sense of he violated the free elections in Venezuela. There is violations on right and left, on human rights, on all sorts of things like that. But the question is whether the United States has the authority, without any legitimate authorization from any international body, the United Nations or any other body, just to take those things, to take justice to its own hands, especially when President Trump tells that his interest is to run the country and to run the oil industry. So there are a lot of questions, and essentially the world was quiet, most of it. There was some reactions in U.S. friends, Israel and others, supporting that, but the European took a very cautious view. I think it depends how it's going to be developed.
Absolutely, and because you mentioned international reactions from such as Israel, Yair Lapid, he said that Iran should now Iran should look at this whole action. How do you analyze, that?
I think it's dramatically different between Tehran and Caracas. Caracas is the southern hemisphere. It's near Puerto Rico. The U.S. could do all that kind of things. Tehran is very, very far away. There is no easy way for the United States to take anybody from Tehran and to kidnap in terms of intelligence, in terms of operation, let alone in terms of the legitimacy. So it's a very, very different things. Some in Israel and elsewhere see it as an introduction to that. That would be also give legitimacy for China to take Taiwan, and giving further legitimacy for Putin for what he's doing in Ukraine. So the world does not want to come to the world of 19th century colonialism and imperialism when a few superpowers just do their own things and they have their own spheres of influence in their own backyard.
Right, and we didn't really see any reaction from China concerning the fact that their special envoy of President Xi Jinping was right there the day before when this all happened. But we did get a reaction from Russia. So how do you assess U.S., sending probably a message? Because when we talk about oil, China is, of course, the biggest importer of oil when it comes to Venezuela. What kind of message do you think would have gone there, and how would they act then?
Well, I think they're still trying to measure that things. It gave a sense to what they've been doing in Ukraine. It gave a certain kind of support to that. Essentially, Ukraine is their own sphere of influence. It makes Russian oil even more expensive. There was a reduction in the price, in the global price, and now, because right now the U.S., going to be some disruption with Venezuelan oil. So there is an effort right now to assess what it means. And I think the Russian response was disagreement and protest, but it was in a muted language. I think they would like to see, and indeed everybody would like to see, what would be the next move. It's not obvious that the United States would send many more troops. They will try to reach a deal with the current vice president that was appointed to be the interim president. Whether it will be possible or not, we will see in the next few days.
And consider the fact that, because when we look at the roles and the kind of, power of Venezuela right now, it's Delcy Rodriguez, because another name that we had running was Machado. And somehow Trump is not really considering Machado as even someone who has the respect and, have the power among the Venezuelans. So I believe that the next option might probably be Delcy Rodriguez, but we do not see, because politically it's not just, what we see right now is probably the, probably a voyeuristic view of what's happening politically. How would you analyze internal politics in Venezuela right now, considering the fact that this is an attack in Caracas, so it's an attack on Venezuela, but when it comes to Venezuela's sovereignty, how would the government take this, including not just the government, but the opposition there?
I think we're going to watch and to see what will happen in the next day, in the next few hours. I think Venezuela has stunned. There was a sense of fear. People were collecting foods in supermarkets. The new president, the new interim president, was just sworn. And as you said, we'll see what will be the connection between the opposition forces that actually previously were supported by the United States. So there is a lot in the making to be seen what will happen. It's very difficult right now to predict. There are so many moving parts in the story.
And when we look at other moving parts, we also consider what happens to Maduro next. I believe there's going to be an indictment. Is this, again, now an end for Maduro?
That's the way it looks right now. It could be that part of overall deal, he will be allowed to leave to some kind of exile. I don't think that the issue there is so much the legal, but will be some kind of political deal. So I think his future might be part of political deal with what will happen in Venezuela itself to try to get some kind of... So Maduro still has, even though he's captured, even though he's going to have his first night in jail in New York City, I think he still has some power to negotiate something. He's not completely done in my reading.
No, that's very interesting because, yes, of course, we might see that, of course, he's in jail, but then we have some support that we see in Venezuela for him. But, of course, we'll have to wait and see and analyze what happens next. Thank you so much for coming on the broadcast and analyzing all of this for us.
Thank you very much. Take care.